killed Tupac and Biggie. I think both of these dudes were assassinated in some kind of way. More Biggie than Tupac. I think Tupac might got killed by a dude that they had an incident with earlier that day. But Biggie's seems a little JFK. Governmental.
Everyone thinks they know the story of Tupac and Biggie, but according to Ice Cube, one of the founding fathers of West Coast gangster rap, we don't know the half of it. He had a front row seat to the whole saga, not just as a spectator, but as an artist who helped define the very sound the world was focused on. He was a peer to both Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G., and he stood in the eye of the storm. For years, people have wanted to know his thoughts on their tragic deaths, and when he speaks, he gives a chilling look behind the curtain of hip-hop's most devastating chapter. Before all the drama, there was respect. Ice Cube saw Tupac and Biggie as fellow artists pushing the art form forward. He's always praised Tupac's genius, seeing him as more than a rapper. He was a force of nature, an activist with an energy that was impossible to ignore. Cube watched Pac grow from a backup dancer with Digital Underground into what he called the Marvin Gaye of hip-hop. While he wasn't as close with Biggie, Cube respected his massive talent and the way he completely changed the East Coast sound. In his eyes, there was a sense of camaraderie the headlines never showed. They were all fans of the music first, studying the greats from New York and sharpening their own styles. It wasn't about personal hate, it was about regional pride and a competitive fire that was being dangerously stoked by outside forces. Now, Cube doesn't let himself or the West Coast off the hook. He admits the tension was real and that he was part of it. The birth of West Side Connection with Mac 10 and WC was a direct response to feeling disrespected by the East Coast media and industry. Songs like Bow Down were designed to be a punch in the mouth, a demand for the respect the West had earned. Cube believes the beef was bubbling long before it centered on Death Row and Bad Boy. It started with an industry attitude in New York that looked down on West Coast gangster rap as not real hip-hop. In his view, that poison eventually trickled down to the artists themselves. What began as a battle for respect on wax turned into something volatile and uncontrollable in the real world. Public beefs, Cube now says, are incredibly dangerous because they create the perfect cover for a third party to come in and escalate things to a fatal end. This is where Ice Cube's perspective gets truly unsettling. He's been consistent in his belief that the simple story we've been told is a lie. Cube rejects the narrative that it was a simple case of Pac versus Biggie. Instead, he has floated the theory that side people and opportunists exploited the public beef to commit murder, knowing the blame would fall squarely on the rival camp. Cube draws a sharp distinction between the two murders. He's acknowledged the common theory that Tupac's death could have been direct street retaliation for the casino scuffle that happened just hours before the shooting. But Biggie's murder? That, he speculates, seems a little governmental. This idea, that Biggie was targeted in a more organized and calculated way, is a theory Cube has returned to, hinting at a conspiracy far deeper than a rap beef. He calls it a shame that the murders of two of music's biggest artists remain, for all intents and purposes, unsolved. The back-to-back murders of Tupac and Biggie were a brutal wake-up call for the entire industry. According to Cube, the violence became so toxic that it forced everyone to see they were on a dead-end road. Fans started turning away from both coasts, which created the opening for the South to rise and dominate hip-hop for years to come. In the aftermath, Cube was part of the healing process. He participated in peace summits, including one organized by Minister Louis Farrakhan to try and mend the divide. It was there he learned a hard lesson about unity from Farrakhan, who drew a parallel to Malcolm X, explaining how public infighting can provide the perfect cover for outside forces to strike and kill. It was a message that hit home. Ice Cube's testimony is a crucial piece of this puzzle. From his vantage point, the story is clear. Tupac and Biggie were legends. Their murders were the work of opportunists hiding behind a manufactured war, and the loss forced hip-hop to grow up. He still holds that while Pac's death might have been street revenge, Biggie was systematically targeted. The whole tragic saga serves as a permanent cautionary tale about where pride and public conflict can lead when they spiral out of control. It leaves us with a lingering question. Was this just a rivalry that went too far? Or were darker, more powerful forces truly at play? Let us know what you think in the comments.